Welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode number 566. Today is the 1st of October, 2025, and we're going to get into answering your local SEO questions in just a couple of minutes. We got a couple of announcements. Want to say hi to the guys and let you know about something that is going on, or actually two things that are going on in the background. But first things first, let's take a second and say hello. So, Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing good, busy in the labs as usual, and yeah, other than that, hitting a workout as usual as well, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Nice, man. Well, Bradley, how about you? How are things going? I know you're probably in the middle of trying to switch all the tech stuff over, but we'll just hop over to you and confuse you anyways.
No worries. No, things are good. Busy. Been trying to develop an app to reduce costs for my overhead or overhead costs or operating costs for my agency or for one of my white label agencies. And it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's interesting. And I kind of actually will talk a little bit about that process today. I was introduced to a really awesome way to kind of figure out how to automate things with AI that was just a very simple kind of approach. And that's what I'm working through now to try to figure out how to automate the content team, my generating content for my link building agency, um, and get rid of a lot of the personnel because I spend so much money in labor costs, which can be reduced by probably 80%. And that's not a joke. I thought through this very seriously, and I could probably reduce my overhead by at least my content labor costs by 80% by just automating it. But I didn't even know where to start. And so it's interesting. But after introduction today, we have a little bit of time because we don't have a lot of questions. So I'll actually kind of talk through that a little bit. But a very simple approach to figuring out how to automate stuff. And that's what we'll talk about a little bit later. So very
Cool.
interesting. I've been kind of balls deep in that for the last couple of days. And I'll be interested or anxious to share that with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, man, lots, as always, there's so much going on in AI. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
kind of using it ourselves. We've been talking about this, how we're going through and relooking at some of the things we're doing. It's not so much, or I guess I should just say it's on the business planning side of things, but we've been working through a lot and how we're going to be releasing some updates and a new, I guess I would call it basically some specialized flow and training for mastermind members and people who aren't yet in the mastermind, but who could make use out of it and some of the really valuable information that some of the people aren't able to access right now, whether it's lack of time or lack of funds to take part of this. And we think we've got something that's going to be really special to help people out. So we're working through that in the background and want to put a lot of effort into that to make sure that that's exactly what people need. So I appreciate anyone who responded to the survey last week. That was really helpful to get some more information. We think we know, right? I mean, we have all either operated or operate agencies. And so we have experience in this, but it's always good to hear from other people as well and understand exactly what's going on with them. Speaking of agencies, we sent out an email, and I believe on Facebook we were talking about local ops. And there's a special going on this week, and it ends Friday at midnight, I believe. So take advantage of that. If you're not on our email list, just go over to semanticmastery.com, hop on the email list, or check out the Facebook page. You definitely want to take advantage of that. It's a great deal. And if you're not at all familiar about what local ops is, I'm going to hand this over to Bradley if you want to explain to people a little bit more about that.
Sure. Let me grab the SOP open real fast. All right, let me grab the screen. So this is the training. Well, this is the SOP version of it, which is what I recommend people go through. There's also a version of it as a course in the mastermind community, which is in Circle. But essentially, what local ops is just my process that I've developed and refined over the years that I've been doing local SEO. That is a repeatable process. The best thing to do is look at the checklist because this essentially shows the process that it's a repeatable process that, a systematized process, right? And it's done in a very specific way with in a very specific order, right? And the timeline is always, relatively close to what we're seeing here. There's sometimes there's a little bit of delay in the on-page optimization kind of time, and that process sometimes causes a little bit of a delay, is what I'm saying. Depends. It depends on how much customization we're doing for our website. If we're building the website, if we're not building the website, then sometimes there's a little bit of a delay in dealing with the webmaster or the web design team, whoever is managing the site. But this is pretty typical time frame in that the time that we complete things. Sometimes it'll extend out here a week or two, but pretty much this is the timeline for how I execute things. And basically, this is, we've had a lot of questions from our mastermind members over the years about like, hey man, there's a lot of really good training in here. There's SOPs and blah blah blah, but I just don't know in what order to do what. Like, how should I sequence things and all of that kind of stuff. And so after, I finally put it together. I just put together basically a checklist and for the mastermind members about a year ago, and then eventually, a month or 2 months ago, something like that, we developed a full SOP out of it. And so to kind of explain what I'm talking about here, this is the process that I use to apply to all local SEO campaigns, full stop, right? I only work with tree contractors now, but this has been developed through a lot of trial and error and a lot of testing over the years, okay? And so this is how I am able to scale my agency work because we have a very repeatable, systematized process. All of our services are productized. We do not do custom SEO proposals. We have basically our services, which are, they can be a la carte, but we typically, and we sell, when I say a la carte, meaning one-offs, you can sell them as kind of like add-ons and things like that, but that's not typically how we sell them. We usually pitch with front-end offers, which are, kind of front-end simple services that don't cost a lot. But then we bundle when we ascend the client up to a higher, outside of the front-end services. The front-end services are really only to get established rapport and a kind of a work history, right? Establish credibility and trust, to develop trust with the contact, with the new client. That's why we usually enter with front-end services. And start the engagement with an initial front end service, which is very inexpensive, which makes it easy for them to say yes to. And then through that process of delivering whatever front end service it is that they selected or chose or whatever, we continue to develop that relationship, build more trust. And then we eventually, the goal is to ascend them into higher level retainer plans, which is a combination of multiple services. Again, all of my agency services are already productized. So depending on what their retainer plan is, their subscription level or whatever it is, that just determines what is included in that particular plan. But they're all productized services, if that makes sense. So it makes it's much easier because instead of us doing custom proposals and everything else, we have set prices for specific services or specific retainer plans. That's it. And they can choose what is most appropriate to them based upon that data, right? Or the options that are available. And so once we have kind of ascended them up into a retainer-based plan, which is a more full service marketing engagement, right? It's not just one-off type of service. It's not just a front-end service that requires very little management or anything else. It's a full retainer package. This is where this comes in. Local ops comes in. The SEO system is how I deliver my SEO services, the deliverables and everything else that we provide as part of a retainer plan, whether it's a low to medium competition, high competition, extreme competition, doesn't matter. It's the same process. The only thing that changes is the volume of the volume of deliverables. In other words, the quantity is increased with the higher level plans, but everything is the same regardless. That's why I can scale, because we have a very specific process developed with specific deliverables packaged in specific packages, and everything is SOP'd out like standard operating procedures so that we can scale by adding new personnel when needed, or as I'm developing more AI stuff, we can scale through automation and AI. But in the meantime, as I'm still using SOPs, that's what this is for. And so I've provided all of that to you guys as part of Local Ops SEO system. All right. So the overview just talks about what it is. The training and resources talks about there's two different ways to access the training. One is in the Circle community. The other is in SOP format, which is what I highly recommend. This is much more efficient. The checklist here just gives you an idea of the timeline and the specific sequence of tasks or whatever we apply to the campaign. And then here's just a kind of a video about selling local SEO services, which is, again, using this local ops SEO plan right here, you could go out and start selling local SEO services immediately. And you don't even have to know how to fulfill it. It doesn't matter. That's what this is for. And I give you in every one of these kind of these tasks or items here that we apply to all campaigns, I give two options here, right? Where they're going to give for example, on the analysis side of things, when that's always the first step. Whenever we take on a new client, the first thing we do is analyze their current digital presence. What does their online presence look like? Where are their deficiencies? Where are there things that can be improved? And then depending upon that analysis, we're either going to, or depending on what type of a company it is, the client is, if it's a new company, then we're just going to start off with a competitive link analysis because there's no history. If it's an established company, we're going to do a full SEO audit. And so here, there's just explaining this is the start of my SEO process, right? We do an analysis depending on what type of company it is or what type of client is, whether it's new, established, whether they've had a digital presence or not, all that kind of stuff determines how we start. So that's what this first module is for. If we're going to apply a full SEO audit, then there's two options here. There's a done for you option, which is meaning you can hire me or my team to do it for you, or there's training for how you can execute that specific task. A competitive link analysis, again, there's a done for you option or training for how to do it, right? Branded assets, once we've determined what from either the full SEO audit or the competitive link analysis, depending on what we applied to that particular campaign, then we know whether we're going to start with branded assets or a brand or brand builder. They're similar services, but one contains several more items plus a premium press release, one does not. So we then very quickly determine from that first analysis what is the appropriate first step. Right? Do we do brand builder or do we do branded assets? In any case, once again, we have done for you services available or training for how to do it yourself. So that's what this entire training is for. We go through every single item that I go through and the timeline in which I apply those items. And I provide you with either training or done for you resources. Many of them are through my own white label agencies, but some of the resources are through third-party vendors that I use. So I provide the vendor URLs. So it allows you to kind of choose your own adventure. You go out, start selling SEO services immediately, and you don't even need to know how to fulfill them. What you need is a process for how to apply what services and when in order to get that client results. That's what matters, right? You don't need to have to know how to do all these things. All you have to do is need to know how to sell it, number one, and then how to hire and manage the deliverables to produce the end result, the desired result, which is what you sold. Does that make sense? And that's what this is. This is a roadmap that you don't even have to know how to do SEO. You can still get results using the done for you services or the SOPs if you want to learn how to do this stuff yourself, which I don't recommend because you can build a much more profitable agency if you're not the one doing the work yourself. I promise you. Okay. So with that said, that's what it's for. Every single one of these steps here has two kind of paths. There's a done for you path or a do it yourself path. It's up to you to make the decision as to what is most appropriate. But if you apply for all local SEO campaigns in this order, the volume of what you apply or quantity of what you apply will likely change, but it's and be determined upon the variables such as the number of competitors, the population, all the other kind of stuff. The competition levels will determine what you need to apply, like the quantity of these items. But still the same process pretty much every time. So that's the local SEO system. It's very thorough, guys. When I say it's very thorough, I mean it's straight and to the point. There's no fluff here at all. It's literally, this is what we do. There's a video explaining why I do this particular thing. And I, talk about the, recommended vendors or my own services or whatever it is. But that's it. It basically just goes through and explains this is how we do things. This is in what order. And here's my services or vendor services or the SOP if you want to do it in-house. Okay. Any questions?
Nice. Cool.
Perfect.
Well, I'm going to hop in. I just got a couple things, Bradley, and then we can switch over. But one of the other favorites is the Local Mastery newsletter. This is our weekly paid newsletter where you get 5 to 7 actionable insights each week, and then there's an action item for each. So this is really condensed down. This is something you can go through in less than 30 minutes, take away at least one thing you can put into action. It's kind of an abundance of actionable content. If you could have your team, you could probably implement a bunch of this, but you can just take one of these and see some real results. And this comes in every week, and you can find out more about that at localmastery.semanticmastery.com. And last but not least, if you're interested in the mastermind, you can find out more about that at mastermind.semanticmastery.com. Everything we've just talked about, local ops, local mastery, everything is included in the mastermind membership. If you're a member, you automatically get access to that stuff as well as everything else. So, with that said, Bradley, you want to hop in, answer the question? We'll see if we get anything else coming in. Otherwise, you can go back to banging out some work today.
Yeah. I just dropped the link for local ops in chat.
Cool.
What was the other one? Local mastery.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll drop that in there too. All right. So we'll get into, we only have, I think, two questions. Two questions. Yeah, we have two questions today and that's it. So, we'll bang out these questions real quick and then I'll take a few minutes and kind of demonstrate what I was mentioning earlier about how to automate, how to start automating things. I'm telling you, I just got introduced to this 2 days ago, like 2 or 3 days ago. It was an X post. I'm going to pull that up and show that and everything, but it just kind of really, I was waiting and dragging my feet to try to develop an AI app or workflow to automate content production for my white label link building agency. And I was dragging my feet because I didn't know where to start. That's truthfully, I'm 100% honest about that. I just didn't really know where to start or how to begin, even because I'm not in that whole kind of field that and I talked about before messing with N8N and developing an AI email inbox filter and I misconfigured it and I missed emails that I should have been replying to for a week because of I had misconfigured it. So and I'd spent like an hour and a half developing this stupid thing. Anyway, long story short, I realized that I don't really have the bandwidth to learn how to build all these automations and everything, and nor should I really, because I'm managing business. My business is my agencies that generate good revenue, so I should be focusing on that type of stuff. But if I can reduce my overhead and my operating costs by a significant margin by automating stuff, then I should learn how to do it or hire it out. Well, here's the thing. I've got an AI dev team now that is part of, that is part of my executive assistant, Hazel. She's been with me for over 10 years now. She runs a staffing agency. She started a new AI dev team as kind of a division of her staffing agency. She's staffed about 90% of my employees over the last many years. So her AI dev team is being contracted by my company to build apps, and they're already working on some apps. But here's the thing. I don't want to ask the AI dev team, which is the division of her staffing agency, to develop an app to then replace about 13 other employees from the same staffing agency. Do you understand? So like, I feel like I have to either hire an outside firm to build this app or do it myself. So because I don't want to hire them to build an app that then is going to replace some of their colleagues or coworkers. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, I feel like there's a ethical dilemma, a moral dilemma there for me to ask the AI dev team to develop an app that's going to replace some of their coworkers. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it myself, but I don't even know where to start. And that's why I've been dragging my feet on that for months. And anyway, I found this X post. I started following a bunch of AI like devs and people in the AI business and industry on X over the last few weeks, and I've been seeing some really cool posts. And so I saw this one a couple of days ago. It boiled everything down into a very simple process that I was like, man, that clicks. And so I'm going to demonstrate that with you guys here in just a minute. I want to get through these other two questions first, just so we can wrap it up, and whatever time's left we can spend on that so I can just kind of talk through that a little bit. All right. Anyways, let me grab the screen. We'll get in these two questions and we'll pop into that. And we should be able to wrap up early unless we get some chatty people in chat, which I don't see at the moment. So Huzzy's question is the first one. Guys, like I said, switch gears, just briefly answer these two questions, and then I'll jump back into what I was just talking about. Is there a limit to how many branded web tools we should create on free WordPress.blog subdomains, or will there be diminishing returns after a certain amount if they're all consistently built on .blog subdomains? No, I mean, there's not any limit, but I think there's kind of diminishing value in total for just like building too many web twos on the same platforms, multiple versions of them. I don't really think you can do it. For example, syndication networks, if you're republishing content to networks, you can have multiple networks all tied together. And there's kind of some value to that because those are tiered links that occur. But what I'm saying is, why would you, there's really just build a branded set of Web2 assets for whatever the brand is. We use a 15 network, 15 Web 2.0 network for a branded network, for the branded assets network. And so I think there's 6 or 7 sites that are all WordPress.com type sites, and a lot of them are on the .blog domains, and that's what you're talking about. There's business.blog, tech.blog, health.blog, home.blog, a number of those. But they're all WordPress.com. So I think it's kind of silly to just to build more and more on there, other than whatever, like the different subdomains, right? Business, tech, health, all of those, having one on each one of those, that's good. But then having multiples on business.blog. So whatever your username subdomain is, .business.blog, right? Having multiple versions of that I don't think is all that helpful. I mean, you should have one branded version on each platform. That's the way I look at it. So I don't know if that was the answer to the question, if that was the specific question or not, but that's what I mean. Basically, you want to have a branded profile on all the different versions available, but having multiple versions of like the business.blog or tech.blog, it's not really helpful in my opinion. So hopefully that answers the question. Last one is, would you recommend having a VA manually build out 50 plus branded Web 2s for new clients all within the first month? Or is it better to spread them out over 3 to 4 months? No, if you can have somebody build them out in the first month, there's no reason not to do it. That would be pretty powerful, right? Manually built Web 2.0s with, they can be very strong if you do it properly. That's essentially what the brand expander training is. It's just building out those assets. It's just doing it consistently over time so that you accrue that many of them, but thoroughly optimizing the profiles when you build them out, right? That's why we don't use automation for that stuff, because a lot of the times those automated tools, that the profiles will end up suspending very quickly. They don't do a good job at building them out. So, we stopped doing that a long time ago, and that's what Brand Expander really was about developing we launched Brand Expander with the goal of all agencies or, members of our audience that have marketing businesses and SEO businesses. None of you as the principals should be in there doing the Brand Expander type work. That's VA work. In other words, if you have clients, you plug a VA into the Brand Expander training, and that becomes their job. Their job is to just build out branded Web 2s that they thoroughly optimize for the client, interlinking everything, right? And do that consistently over time, and that produces significant results. So building 50 just shortcuts it. Instead of doing it over time, you do it all at once. If you got somebody who can do that and do it well, then sure, that can help. That can help quite a bit. Well, especially once you have all those Web 2s, then putting them into the ID page, linking out to them from a GB post. If you have a Google business profile, putting them in the same as attributes of the schema, right? All of those things will help them to be found and discovered. So that'll help to improve branded location authority, right? Good question though. Sharkin says service pages should be detailed going in all about the service, going in all about or all in about the service maybe, but should a service business location landing page explain the service provided at all, or should it just be about my business and city? No, with links to the service page. No, you can, I mean, look, you have to test. Okay. Typically, I recommend you just have an H2 statement that says, these are the services available at this location or in this area, right? Because maybe there's not an actual physical location there, but they serve that area. So the language or verbiage of that H2 statement that introduces the services is going to vary depending on what's relevant to that business, right? So let's say it's a service area business. They don't actually have a location there, but they service that area. So these services are available in this area, right? And then you repeat that area, whatever the name is, the city name, town, whatever it is. These services are available in Pikeville, Kentucky, whatever it is, right? And then underneath that is going to be the links linking to the service pages with an H3 anchor text links. If it's just top level service page, an H2 statement introduces that internal link element with H3 anchor text links that link to those specific service pages using the service title as the anchor text. Does that make sense? If it's top level service pages, if there are top level service category pages with supporting service pages nested underneath that, or as child pages of that top level service category page. Then you can have H3 anchor text links as column headers in that internal link element that link to the top level service category pages. But then H4 anchor text links to link to the supporting service pages, as those would be listed under the appropriate H3 column header, right? Service category header. Does that make sense? So you can create an internal link element that has the proper hierarchy with proper markup of headings, subheadings, etc., so that it should, because guys, an anchor text link with an H tag assigned to it adds more significance, right? So you can specify the significance of the hierarchy of the services, for example, in this example, by showing on a location page, if there's, for example, okay, if you've got an HVAC plumber and electrical contractor, right? A company that does HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. You'd have 3 top-level service category pages: HVAC services, right? Plumbing services, electrical services. But then you'd likely have supporting service pages underneath each of those, right? So for example, HVAC services is a broad category, but then there's central air, air conditioning, excuse me, and central heating. It would be 2 supporting services that fall underneath the HVAC service categories. That makes sense? So if you had a location page for an HVAC contractor that did electrical and plumbing as well, then you could have the H2 statement. Let's just use Pikeville as an example. It says, Benner's HVAC does provide the following services in Pikeville, Kentucky. And then it would have an H3 anchor text link at the column header for HVAC service or services, or just HVAC, whatever we ended up titling it, plumbing or plumbing services, electrical or electrical services. Does that make sense? And then underneath that, the HVAC column header, it would have an H4 for air conditioning, an H4 for central heating. Do you understand? Under plumbing, it could be, water heaters, plumbing repair, or just repair, or something like that. Does that make sense? So that's how you would do it, is build it out to have just a link to this particular service. However, you can test around, you can test a little bit with, instead of having like a table of links, you could have an H2 that says these are the services available in this location, and have it kind of like almost like paragraph text with an H3 anchor text as the kind of saying, in this example that I just mentioned, HVAC services said air conditioning. So let's just say under HVAC heading, you would say these are the HVAC services that we provide in this area. And then you could have instead of just a table of links, you could have just a description, like a one-liner description. You can play around with that a little bit and add a little bit of content. Here's the thing. This is what I'm getting at though, guys, is I still see this all the time, is I go look at a location page, and the location page has a separate, paragraph section with an H2, H3, whatever the heading type it is that they use for each service that's already been thoroughly described on the service page. And then they have a paragraph or 2 description for each of those services that are mentioned on the location page. What is the purpose of that? Especially if you got multiple location pages. You saying the same damn thing over and over and over and over again. It doesn't make any sense. If the service has already been described thoroughly on the service page, it doesn't need to be described elsewhere. It only needs to be clearly referenced within any of the location pages. Anywhere where somebody would, on a location page where they would say, I'm curious about the, air conditioning service. What's available? Well, if you make it really easy, these are the HVAC or the services available in this area under HVAC air conditioning, then all they have to do is click that link, and they're going to go see everything that they need to know about the air conditioning service. So there's no need to duplicate that content over and over and over again. You can test with it though. I would recommend, first of all, you want to keep the site efficient, which is why you don't want to duplicate that content. That creates more work for you. It also creates more work for Google and the bots to crawl the page and the site, etc., because it's more content that is repeating or redundant content, right? It's the same thing, duplicated content, saying over and over and over again. It's not necessary. Why create more work for you and the bots? Right? Keep it simple, make it easy, make it site efficient. So no, it's not necessary. You can play around with that and see, if there's a reason for conversions, for example, that you want to have more text on the page, fine, play with it. I'm just trying to explain that it's not necessary. What is the SEO's answer to everything? Throw more words on the page. right? That's always the fucking answer in SEO. It's this like, just throw more words on the page. Oh, I know why. We just need more words. We need higher entity density or keyword density or whatever you want to call it. It's bullshit. Look at the page structure, right? And the overall site structure, helpful content update. Thank you. Like that's precisely what caused all of this, right? Which I think was a benefit for us as SEOs because we don't have to do nearly as spammy type of shit that we used to have to do, right? Make the site more efficient. You only need one page to describe each kind of concept of the site, topic of the site. One page, that's it. You don't need multiple pages saying the same thing. Get it? So anyways, you can play around with it, experiment with it. Just keep it simple is what I'm saying. Try to make the site as efficient as possible and make it easy for the user, right? That's why I like to keep location pages very lean. This is who we are. This is how to contact us or request contact back from us. These are the services that are available at this location or in this area, depending on what the type of business is. If that makes sense. And then there's a list to all the services. They're clearly clickable links. So somebody can click to any one of the service pages and get all the information that they need to know about that service. It doesn't have to be referenced on the location page, other than just a navigation element to take them to where it's thoroughly described. Okay. So anyways, again, the SEO's answer is always throw more words on the page, and that's not really necessary in my opinion. So, all right, moving on, guys. All right, so I'm just going to share this and then we're going to wrap up. So I don't see any other questions. If anybody comments or has anything they want to chat about, that's fine. This is the post. It's Noah Epstein. His username is Nas on X. Again, I just saw this a couple of days ago and I bookmarked it because it was so simple. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So in my link building business, I have 18 content team members. Like I've got a team of 18 personnel that work on content, okay? Because we do a ton of article generation and editing. So we don't none of my content team are writers. They prompt AI to produce content, but then they human edit the content. So whatever the AI generates, we have 18 human editors that manage the content by editing it, inserting the links. We usually do for tier 1 posts, we usually have 2 anchor text links and a Google Map embed. So they'll go in and they'll modify the articles, edit them, insert the links, the embeds, and then go publish on whatever platform it is that we're publishing on, whatever the blog is that we're publishing to. Does that make sense? So, but there's really no need for that anymore for me to have 18 members doing that, because if I could automate it, which I've been waiting to do, I could, I could probably reduce that down to like three human editors. And my average labor cost for just that content team on a monthly basis for my white label link building agency is $10,000. That is no kidding. On average, there are months where I spend 10 or excuse me, like 12, $13,000 on content. There's months where I'll spend like 8. But my average is roughly $10,000 a month in personnel costs for content alone. And that's just for that editing process. There's also a management fee, and that's another. In total, I spend $17,000 a month on average on content. Seriously, $7,000 for management of the posts and the process, managing the post all the way through from the order process all the way through the editing, publishing, verifying that it's live, extracting the link, sending it to indexers, posting it in the workbook and the ClickUp activity card for clients, because that's where we show the deliverables in 2 different locations for all clients. So I have my project manager, she gets a fee for every single post that is published, $7. It's a management fee, and she's the one that manages the process from the start to the finish. But the writing team or the content team, they get $10 per post. So just so you guys know, I pay my team $17 for every fucking post that is published. No kidding. Okay. And so so I've got this huge bill, the labor bill, that's been fine. I'm profitable. That's great. But now with the technology available, I can reduce that cost by probably 80%, at least on the content side of things. The management side of things, I'm still going to pay that to my project manager. But the content side of things, I can probably reduce that from $10,000 to roughly, my projections are about $2,000 a month. So that's 80%. So that's an $8,000 profit margin increase, just like that, right? Overnight. Pretty significant if I can get it done. So anyways, I've been thinking about this for months, and I've hired like I said, I mentioned this earlier, my executive assistant Hazel. She's been working for me for over 10 years now. And she has a staffing agency who has staffed about 90% of the employees. Okay. So the entire content team has been staffed by her and her staffing agency. And so they recently hired some college students that are studying computer science and AI and all this kind of stuff to create their own AI dev team. And so I was one of the first people, obviously, that, started to use their dev team. And I've got them 2 different projects that they're working on already. So I approached Hazel, my executive assistant who runs the staffing agency, because most of my employees actually report to her or to their team leader, project manager, whatever. So they don't actually report to me. So I don't even have communication with a lot of them. So anyways, but I went to Hazel and said, listen, I want to, build this, like, there's really no reason for me to continue paying these labor costs because AI can handle a lot of this stuff. And I said, but I want to make sure that, number one, we built this business to where it is on the backs of our workers, our employees, our personnel. So I don't want to just fire them. I want to, kind of move them, transition them into other roles, other tasks, because again, I appreciate them and what they've done for this business. But there's no reason for me to continue paying that. And so I brought that to her attention, and she said, look, I kind of knew that was going to happen anyways at some point, blah, blah, blah. So as I mentioned earlier, guys, I could ask her and the dev team to build this app for me. But I think that I have a real problem with that ethically, morally, to say, hey, look, can I hire your dev team to develop an app that's going to replace a big significant portion of the personnel from your staffing agency for my company? Does that make sense? It just, to me, that doesn't feel right. And so I said, I'm either going to hire an outside developer to do it, or I'm going to do it myself. Well, I just happened to be looking on X the other night. I was just doom scrolling through X the other night, and I saw this post, and it was really good. And I said, man, this is exactly what I needed to hear, because I didn't know how to start. So I know that was a long way to kind of wind up to it, but it's a very simple post. And so this will go quick now, but just read through the post. I mean, you probably already read through it. Basically says what I've been talking about in local SEO. Okay. We go back to this local ops SEO training that I was showing earlier, this SOP. And right here is the selling local SEO marketing video. This was a video that I had cut out of one of our live event recordings from POFU, or Position of Fuck You. That's our live event, POFU Live. And I was talking about the industry is backwards. Most people in the SEO or local marketing industry, they go into the business thinking, if I just learn how to rank stuff, then I'm going to be financially free. And that's bullshit. That's backwards. Instead of spending all your time learning how to do SEO and get good at SEO, you should learn how to fucking sell it first, because that's where the money's made. And you can find third-party providers to actually fulfill whatever it is that you sell. As long as you sell it with a markup, you can be profitable and never have to go through that learning curve. If you want to, you can, but satisfy your cash flow needs first, right? Meet your cash flow needs first to support your overhead, your business, your personal income goals, all of that stuff. Get that satisfied first. And then if you want to bring fulfillment in-house, that's fine. So I've been talking about that for years. This came from like that speech basically that I was talking about. It was called Cash Flow SEO, because it was saying, instead of going through, going and spending months or years learning SEO before you can even monetize it, learn how to monetize it first, right? Build a business, generate revenue, get cash coming in, use third-party fulfillment providers first. And then once you have money coming in, if you want to learn how to do SEO, once you've got a real cash flowing in your business, by all means do it, right? Build your own in-house fulfillment team. This guy's saying the same thing about AI. Everybody teaching AI is doing it backwards. That's what he was saying right here. Everyone teaching automation is lying to you. You don't need to know N8N. You don't need to know how to code. All you need to know how to do is go. So this, I'm just going to read through this, guys, just because I think this is spot on. This is precisely how I was explaining to people. I think that how you should enter the SEO or local marketing industry is to identify an industry, find out, learn all that you can about that industry, have conversations, what I call discovery calls with business owners in that industry with no intention of selling them anything initially, just asking them questions about their business, their marketing, what happens when a lead comes in, all that kind of stuff. Gather intelligence so that you can develop processes, offers, etc., solutions that solve problems for that business. Starting fine with marketing services, that's fine. But in like Tree Care HQ, my own local SEO agency, we are no longer just a marketing agency. We develop processes and systems into tree care companies to help them to grow. It's not just marketing anymore, right? We develop systems, operating systems into their business, essentially. Does that make sense? So that's what I've been teaching. And so that's what this guy is saying on the AI side of things. And he put it in a way that made sense to me too. All right. And that was this. He says, you don't need to know NNN. You don't need to know how to code. A kid DM'd me 3 weeks ago, basically saying, make me money. Zero skill, zero experience. Yesterday, he closed his first $8,000 deal. He still can't explain what a webhook is. Here's exactly what I told him. Stop learning automation and start selling it. Okay. The entire industry wants to master N8N first or learn make, just like the entire SEO industry was learn how to rank shit in Google first before you go sell it. I think that's backwards. Learn how to sell it first, right? Here's the actual playbook. Find businesses first. Walk into any dentist, accountant, or restaurant. Say it's for a university project if you're nervous, right? Or whatever. And that's Steve's talking to a young person for this. But if you're an older person, just say it's for, some new services. That's what I've done with Tree Guys. I'll get on a call with them and I'll say, look, I'm developing a new service. And I have some questions about that I'm hoping to develop solutions for. So I'm trying to this is a discovery call. I'm trying to gather information or intelligence about problems in your business so that I can develop solutions. Just be honest and transparent about it. That's what he's saying to do, but he was talking about, for a young person. So saying it's for a university project. Ask one question. What task wastes 2+ hours of your day? Then listen, don't pitch. Don't mention any automation, just understand their daily hell. Dentist, admin nightmare. Hair salons, booking chaos. Every business has something that they hate doing. Leave, go home, open up ChatGPT or Claude or whichever model you use. How would I automate their exact problem, right? Get a basic solution. Don't overcomplicate it. Go back with confidence to whoever you were talking to and say, I can make that 2-hour task take 2 minutes. Show them on paper from the output from Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is you use that provided you with an outline of how to begin automating that, right? You don't have to have it built, none of that. You just go back to that contact and say, here's how we can automate or how we can take something that took 2 hours and make it take less than 2 minutes. Get them to agree to it first, right? I can make that. Show them on paper, not technical, just this happens automatically instead of manually, right? Get paid first. It'll be $5K to set this up. They're either going to pay or they won't. If they won't, so be it. Next, right? Ron LeGrand, which is who I learned how to flip houses from many, many years ago. He used to say, some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting, right? So as far as making offers on houses, we would make offensive offers on houses, like 20, 30 cents on the dollar of what they were worth. And his way of telling us to get off our ass and just make offensive offers was, don't worry about it. If they say no, what? No, so what? So what? Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting, right? SW, SW, SW. I'll never forget that. Okay. And so same thing here. He's saying, go pitch it, get somebody that's interested in it. Ask questions about something that that repetitive task or stuff that eats up a lot of their time, and it's a recurring type of a task, stuff like that. Go back to ChatGPT, wherever or whatever model you're using. Ask, how would I begin outlining that or automating this? Get the output, clean it up, make it more presentable. Go back to the company and say, this is what we can do. We can turn this 2-hour task into 2 minutes or less, or whatever, however you frame it, right? Then offer it for pitch a price, get them to agree on the price, then you go build it. And this is why I was like, oh man, that's genius, because it's so simple. So Cinta.io is an app that will develop N8N automations. It'll build the workflows by just prompting, right? What they call vibe coding or whatever, but you can just go in and prompt and have a conversation with it and tell it what the scope is, what the goal of the application is, what your ideas are, et cetera. And then just start having a conversation with it, and it will start to build the app in N8N for you. Well, it doesn't build it in N8N, but it gives you the JSON file that then you can upload to N8N. And then you can go back and forth between N8N and Cinta to work out bugs in the workflow. All right. And I didn't know where to start like just a few days ago. And then I saw this post and I was like, man, that's genius. Right. And so in my own business, I said, okay, well, let me just test this on my own business because I'm trying to develop this app for how to build an automation for content. So here's where I started. Well, that was a prompt to get ChatGPT to reply in a specific way. But here's where I started right here, right? How would I automate? Just exactly what that expo said. How would I automate? And then I insert problem here, right? Article, blog post production from OneDrive hosted Excel sheet for context. And then I provided context and I explained what it is that I wanted. So here we go. So this is the output from that because the initial prompt was to give out the outputs in a particular format. So that's what this is. Here's the output in the different formats that I asked for it. And then eventually it says practical action. That's the fourth step in the output instructions that I provide is to give action plan, something that I can do now. And it started talking about this. So I took this and it basically gave me the information as to what I needed to develop. And then it said, since you mentioned Cinta.io, use Cinta's workflow builder to scaffold the node chain, blah, blah, blah. So I took all of this information and I went right over to Cinta, which is what I'm going to show you guys next. That's here. This is Cinta. I subscribed to an account, like it's, I don't know, $49 a month or whatever it is, $29 a month, whatever it is. I subscribed to an account and I started in on this. Now I've got multiple variations of this. I've spent several times, just to be clear, after working through this for about 4 or 5 hours the other day, I banged my head against the wall for 2 hours trying to get the Microsoft authentication working. And I couldn't get it to work no matter what. So I ended up going back to it and saying, like, I'd like to get your opinion about this workflow because I spent hours trying to work on the Microsoft authentication side of the N8N integration, right? So, and I just said, look, given the complexity of using Microsoft, this is after about several hours of me trying to get it to work. I was in Microsoft help files. I was asking Microsoft Copilot, ton of questions trying to work through all this. I said, given the complexities of using Microsoft, would it simplify the build if we use Google Drive instead? Absolutely. That's basically the short answer. So then I said, okay, all right, I appreciate the feedback. Please recreate the entire instruction set to add to Cinta for Google Sheets. So that's kind of where I'm at. I got back to it a little bit today. The N8N application is here. I'm having an issue with this right here that I just went back to Cinta and I exported that N8N JSON file from this workflow here because there's an error with this node right here. And so I went back to Cinta and I said, okay, here's the issue, and said, I need you to, here's the workflow. Here's where the issue is occurring. Fix it, right? And that's what it does. It just goes through and it goes through and now once it's done, I can now download this, upload that back. I'll just go right in here, select all. So I'm going to select all, delete, then import from file. So I will import from the file the new version, which will be 3.0.2 for the new one that I have not even downloaded it yet. And then boom, it'll have it uploaded with the fixes. So I'm just pointing this out, guys, because I drug my feet for months on how to begin because I don't understand this shit. I'm an SEO guy, not a coder. I don't understand Python. I don't understand how to build these AI agents or anything else. But this little X post here, this simple X post said very easily, like very clearly in simple words, like simple format, this is how you do it. Just go to whatever your favorite model is and say, how would I begin automating specify problem, right? And then start having a chat with it. And if you have tools available like Cinta, which we all have available now, right? It's very inexpensive. There's no reason why you can't take the output, the outline from whatever model it is that you're chatting with that says this is the beginning of how to tell it, give it context. I'm going to be using Cinta to develop an N8N app or workflow that will accomplish this, whatever the goal is, right? Make sure you give it full context. Then have a chat with it, get the output file, and then go right over to Cinta. And that's all you do is upload that directly to Cinta. That's what this document or this right here is. You'll see it says right here, the Cinta workflow builder prompt, there's an A1 and A2. There's 2 different versions depending on the options. So all I did was come down here to this, at the bottom of this here and copy it And then I went right over to Cinta and pasted the whole thing in there. I didn't even edit it, even with the commentary from ChatGPT. I just took the whole fucking thing, went right over to Cinta, pasted it in, and said go. Right. And that's it. And so I'm still working through it, guys. Like I'm learning as I go, but I just wanted to point out, I thought it was a very simple process that anybody can use to go out and start making money on developing AI applications to solve specific business problems. Right. And don't even really have to know how to do it. You just have to know how to use the proper apps. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys because I think it was a great, kind of process that really simplified it and gave me, look, I believe, I know there's a lot of kind of fake posts on these types of, X and Facebook and everything else about, make money gurus that want you to go out and subscribe or whatever. I get all that, but this seems awfully logical to me, right? Very simple way to do it. Go find a business problem, something that's repetitive that can likely be automated, and then just go back to a language model, whatever your favorite is, and ask it, how can I begin to automate this? Just have a conversation with it. Figure it out. I'm sure you can do it. Okay. Anyway, we're going to wrap up. Oh, sorry. We do have a couple of comments. Let's go ahead and answer those and then we'll finish for the day. Costco, would you rank legit user engagement signals from authenticated Google accounts above brand strength in site structure? Yeah. Yeah. You know why? Because I've seen a lot of terrible, in competitive analysis and full SEO audit reports, which, I do, 5 to 7 of those a week, every week, week in and week out, and have been for over 2 years now. I see, especially in the last few months, I've seen more so when it's an exact match domain. Those are crushing it right now on local search. I don't know why, but they are. But also, there's often times where we will see in competitive analysis reports, websites or web pages that are ranking for particular queries when all other SEO factors like point to they have no business for ranking, right? They have no business to be ranking. Like they shouldn't be ranking is what I'm saying. Like in other words, so what causes that, right? Well, in the case of an exact match domain, it could just be the exact match domain. But in the case where we see, websites, Google doesn't rank websites for queries, it ranks web pages. So when we see a web page that is ranking for a particular query and there's like no SEO metrics at the page level, and then we go look at domain level metrics and the domain level metrics are shit too, or non-existent, which happens, then how are they ranking, right? And it's got to be through engagement signals. So for example, engagement signals that can be offline type signals can be generated through offline marketing. I mean, for example, sending yard signs or bandit signs, right? In the real estate business, we used to call them bandit signs, but yard signs, right? This roof was replaced by, Benner's roofing services, right? That in somebody's yard, and somebody drives by and they see it and they go to search and they search for Benner's roofing services and they click through. That's a great signal because that's a local validated Google user that Google has a full profile on. Google knows where they live, where they, all that kind of stuff. And now that user just did a brand search and a click through for a local contractor. Does that make sense? So yes, branded or engagement signals from validated Google users are probably more powerful because I've seen a lot of sites ranking that have, according to all other SEO metrics, they have no business ranking. So why are they ranking? It's either an anomaly, which can happen, or it's because of those types of branded search and click signals that can occur through offline marketing and advertising. And yeah, you can manipulate that too, but it's more difficult, if that's clear. It's a good question. Like if a business gets GBP traffic signals from social media or ads, will it rank the GBP more effectively than strengthening the brand or improving the site structure on page? I don't know about from social media or ads because those signals are weighted a little bit differently than like a branded search and click signal from a local consumer or local Google user, so to speak. If that makes sense. You can do some things with paid ads to simulate Google user searches and clicks and things like that, but it's still referral-based traffic coming from external sources. So that tends to be a little bit more effective too. I would say don't just do one or the other though, right? Do both. If you can generate traffic, whether branded search and click signals from real local consumers or by doing it through referral traffic sources such as social media and paid ads, etc., then fine, do that. Generate those traffic signals, but also work on building branded location authority, right? Don't just do one or the other, do both. That's clear. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up just 4 minutes shy of the top of the hour. So I was able to stretch Phil this whole time.
Good stuff,
Surprised.
man.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Appreciate